Some of the best business owners, they realize that the majority of their time needs to go to developing the team, not necessarily making all the sales. All right, welcome to another episode of Golf, Coffee, and Business. It's okay. Well, golf, coffee, and business are three of my favorite topics. So I thought I'd bring them all to you today. So welcome to another episode of the Above the Business podcast. So today we're going to be talking about, do you buy or do you build the talent? Now this builds upon the episode that I did where we talked about functional leaders versus helpers. And I said I was going to do this episode on whether you buy or build the talent. So this is all kind of around a series talking about in the month of May, our teams. In fact, time of this recording or whenever this is going to drop, we would have just ran the May Leadership Above the Business workshop. Myself and Dr. Matt Payton had two different things we were bringing in. We're going to be talking about business owners who are going to be hiring their very first manager or leader in their organization, whether that's a sales manager, service manager, or maybe an office operations manager. And then the second part is, if you already have a manager, leader in your organization, which means you're probably doing at least $1 million in revenue, maybe more, to actually have a true office manager in your organization. So how do you continue to grow and develop them? And what kind of training and development are they actually getting? So that was the topic of the workshop that Dr. Matt Payton and myself did. Now, let's talk about buying or building the talent. Hormozi talks about the space between $1 million and $3 million called the swamp. And I did a Friday solo podcast specifically on this, where I have a tremendous amount of respect for what he talks about and what he does, but I do actually disagree with him around what he considers to be the swamp. Basically, you're big enough, but not big enough to be able to afford the type of talent that you need to scale to, in his case, he probably thinks about it in scaling to, $30 million or $100 million. Well, for most of the business owners that listen to us, they're trying to get the company to $1 million. And then if they can get it there, how can they get it to, double the company to $2 million, and then maybe even try to get it to $3 million? So I think when he is talking about buying the talent, he is talking about someone that is probably highly educated, maybe even has secondary degrees, postgraduate, but more than anything, they have expertise of doing the thing that you need done. They are going to cost $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year because, that's what they're getting paid to do what they do. And as a small business owner, that can be really expensive. Now, if you're looking for someone who, when I say buying the talent, maybe they're a sales rep, they were doing well, they were maybe making 60 or 70, and you're able to offer them an opportunity to where they can make 80, 90, or 100. I think that also, you're buying the talent, you're buying the expertise and the skills that they have and the experience of being a sales rep, maybe selling pest control or something else. But more often than not, you're in the training and development space. And this is really about building the talent. This also goes along with the other episode that I did, which is called Production versus Potential. With production specifically, you are going to the transfer portal to get that person. Maybe you're in insurance and you're going and actually taking a sales rep or a service team member from a competitor, depending on what company you represent. But let's say whatever industry that you're in, you're going to one of your competitors and plucking them out in the transfer portal. Well, with that, what also, obviously, to stay on that analogy with college football, what tends to be the case? Well, the transfer portal guys cost so much money. Michigan won the national championship game this past year, and one of the big time players for Michigan was Yaxel, and he had actually played at UAB, not far from Auburn. And Auburn made an offer, but Michigan made a much bigger offer because of the success he had had. So they went to the transfer portal to try to pick up talent. Well, to do that, they were going to go buy the talent, quite literally. I think there's an analogy here within business. If you're buying the talent, you're buying their production, you're buying their expertise, you're buying their knowledge, and that costs money. Hey, if you'd like some help in getting above the business, not just working on it or in it, but getting above the business, two ways we can help. Number one, go to blueprintos.com. You can register for one of my above the business workshops. 2 hours, always on Tuesday, once a month. We take a topic, sales, marketing, team development, and we help you go deep. We oftentimes bring on guest speakers, totally free, completely live, blueprintos.com. And then also on that page, you'll see that you can book in a blueprint game plan call. If you would like us to look into your business, myself or someone on my team, to find out about where you are today, we call that point A, and find out where you're trying to go, your point B, then we'll also help you begin to map out a plan to remove the barriers and whatever's blocking your forward progress. Either way, just go to blueprintos.com, and I look forward to seeing you either on a game plan call or one of our above the business workshops. Whereas if you're buying for potential, which is what the college programs do out of the high school ranks, that production that they had in high school doesn't always transfer to college. Sometimes it does. Maybe for some of the top tier guys, more often than not, that it does, but not all the time. They're buying the potential. So would you. You're buying the potential of someone that you can grow and develop with. And so what's the difference? Well, one is going to cost you more. If you're going to the transfer portal, as I was talking about a couple of weeks ago, you're buying the talent. It's just going to cost more. But if you are building the talent, it's still going to cost you something. It just is not going to cost you as much in terms of dollars. It's going to cost you more time. There's more of your time that often has to be put forth to grow and develop that person to be a key contributor in your organization. And this is what's key. After working with, I don't even know how many hundreds of business owners, or even just being exposed to business owners since 2018, other than the ones that I was involved with myself, some of the best businesses have been, or best business owners have been the ones that have been able to grow and develop talent. They realize that the majority of their time needs to go to developing the team, not necessarily making all the sales. Now, in a later time, I'll talk to you about how in the early stages of business, being the Rainmaker up until about $500,000 is valuable. But past that, it is about driving results through other people. And so those people, you've either bought the talent, you've went to the transfer portal, this person has skills, attributes, they've done the thing. I'm not going to have to put as much training and development into them. So I'd rather spend the money and invest money to be able to bring that person into my organization. Or the second part is, I'm going to go find someone that has just the raw skills, the ability to communicate. They don't have the experience, maybe in sales as an example. Maybe they're not even experienced specifically in being an operations person, but they have great communication skills. They have great written skills. They, have different attributes, hardworking. They show up on time, etc. All of these attributes that are unique to that person, maybe they just don't have the skills. I can pour into that person and build and develop them to get them to where I want to go. And so this becomes a mental model. I like to try to bring things back to some sort of a framework, model, concept that you can take away. So when you're thinking about growing your team, or potentially if you actually have some turnover in your organization and you have a spot to fill, the way to think about this is, well, am I going to buy the talent or am I going to build the talent? Do I need to go to the transfer portal, which typically means I'm going to have to buy it? Or am I going to go find someone, an A player with these skills, these beliefs, and these character traits? This is what I'm going to go look for. And if I can find that, then even though they haven't done exactly what this job is, I believe I can grow and develop them. So that's a great mental model as you're going into deciding who you're going to bring on. And then, of course, at that point, you take and work with maybe a recruiting company like one of our podcast sponsors, Autopilot Recruiting, and say, hey, this is what I'm looking for. I want someone who has experience in this industry doing this thing, or they have at least been in sales. Okay, well, you're probably going to find someone who's been in sales, and if they've had any amount of success, they're going to demand more money. They're going to demand a higher package than what you're going to find with someone who is just getting started. I hope this helps. I hope that kind of brings together some of the things that we've been talking about regarding production versus potential, hiring functional leaders versus hiring helpers. And then today, are we going to buy the talent or are we going to build it? And if you grow and develop your team and you bring people in your organizations, and you bring even, managers and other leaders into your organization, you can do more things like practice your golf game. All right, now I've got pressure. Let's see if I can actually hit this worth a flip. All right, that's not too bad to be on camera. All right, everyone. Till next time, lead well and go be great.